problem, Vivian. Go right ahead. It's not. It is not difficult. It is a fun way of upping your game, or maybe just not even upping it, but changing what you're doing. And applique can apply to clothing, or to wall art, or quilt, you name it. It all just depends on what you're doing. So specifically, we are going to cover today raw edge machine applique. Can't hear me. Is that better? Okay, so specifically, it covers. We're going to cover raw edge machine applique, but there are several different ways you can applique. So there's raw edge. There is a turn edge, and you can either turn it by stitching a stitching flip, or you can turn it by basting the edge down, and then stitching it with machine or by hand onto your background. And then there's also embroidery machine applique, and that's done in hoop. But within all those, there's the facets is unstoppable. There's needle, and then there's needle turn, which is a whole another kettle of fish. Okay, so specifically, we're going to talk about raw edge today. I have a couple of projects that I have sitting here. I've got a couple of things. Well, I've got, but let's just see. Let's just narrow it down to a couple, and I'm going to go over how I do things and what I like. I have been doing applique of all kinds. Hi Tracy, how are you? Crystal, I wonder. I wonder. Slide it over a little bit. Let's see if that works. I'm trying. It's a different thing. Better? I'm not any closer. I have been doing applique since the mid 2000s. There we go. Whew. Sorry. And I have done all kinds, whether it is just hand turned, and hand turned I like, which is you just turn down 1/4 of an inch around the edge and then you stitch it on. I love it for handwork whenever you're not going to have your machine and you just want to stay busy. And it has a completely different look than raw edge. However, I love raw edge because it's really fast. In the realm of speediness. There we go. So needle turn is another one of those. It's really pretty, very classic, lots of handwork. So it just depends on what your ultimate goal is, if you're looking to get it done quickly or how you want it to look, right? So that being said, let's get started. So you need to know what your design is going to be, and your design can come from anywhere. It can come from a Lori Holt template. She does, and I'm going to show you that because I use some of her things today, where it looks just like this. This is a So Simple shape. It is from, I think this is Be Vintage. Quickly does what I'm looking for. And so you're going to start off with your shape. This is not reversed yet. This is just the way it's supposed to be. Whenever you do it. Now, this particular shape, it does not matter. Reversed, non-reversed. But whenever you come over here to this shape, this is going to be whenever you have something like this. This is going to be whenever, if it needs to be reversed or not, that's going to matter. That's for a butterfly wing. I'm going to leave that over there for right now. Okay, so you need your shape. Shapes can come from template sets. It can come from children's coloring books. I've been known to use coloring books. If you're a really good artist, you can sketch a shape out and do it. So you're going to start with that. The next thing is you're going to need a medium. And whenever I say a medium, I am talking about the fusible that's going to go on the back of your fabric. So you've got your shape. And you are going to, what you're going to do is, I'm going to grab those pieces that I was using because I did some hearts. You are going to use your shape and trace it onto the paper backing of your fusible, right? And whenever you do that, you'll cut it out, not on exact lines. I cut it out on exact lines after I fuse that onto the fabric. So whenever you're doing your tracing, you do not want to use a heat erasable pen. Just saying. Ask me how I know. And so I'm going to lean the camera down and I'm going to give you an example. Don't mind my bolt. It's getting to the very end. I do buy this because I do so much of it. I do buy the bolt, lots of it. My preference for my fusible is Heat and Bond Featherlight. Whenever it is on and it is all said and done, you can barely tell that you have the fusible on the back of it. So it is not going to make your fabric really heavy. It's not going to make it extremely stiff. It is not going to fray on the edges, which is the whole thought process behind the Heat and Bond. Not just for making it stick whenever you're going to go around it, but in addition to it, it's not going to fray near as much. Fraying can occur on the very, very far out edges, depending on whenever you go and stitch it down, how you do that, which we'll cover in a minute. I am going to grab... So I have whimsy, and I have whimsy cut out, and I have some not so whimsy things. So the hearts is my whimsy. I'm going to show you, I'm going to trace around that because I need a boatload more hearts because I thought, you know, heart quilt. No, hearts and butterflies for little girls because I have little girls and little girls needs hearts and butterflies. However, so I'm going to show you this. This is a completed block. It has been fused and it has, so the fusible is on the back of each one of these pieces. It's trimmed out and it's been stitched around. Let's see if it'll focus. No, I guess not. And this look is accomplished. This is one that has not. I still need to stitch around it. You can see my tail is not done. So this is a primitive. That's a whole box. That's a whole nother thing. Okay, so I'm going to show you. So we're going to lean down if I can, if it'll let me. Like I said, this is not my normal camera setup. This is something new, so apologize. So I have my shape. This does not matter if I flip it left or right. It's all going to be the same shape. I am going to nest it in and just trace around. It's that simple. Make the most of my piece of, let me go back over here, piece of fusible, and then I'll cut this out with paper cutting scissors, which is ironic because once I iron it on, I'm going to cut it out with fabric scissors, but whichever makes me feel better, I think. I don't know. It's very washable friendly. Now, if you do machine embroidery, then I also use this featherlight on the back of my fabric pieces that I'm going to applique then as well. Let's see if I have paper scissors. Okay, this is Heat and Bond Featherlight, like I said. So a lot of people will say, oh, my Fusible didn't stay, or it's not sticky. And there's a couple of things that happen with that. It can be that your iron was too hot for too long, or not hot enough. I'm going to use this on charm squares, so I have these. What I can say is you do not want to get the Fusible on your iron. Makes it smell burning. So this will fit on a charm square. That's the large heart. And then the small hearts, it's just one on a charm square as well. It's all done the same way. If you have a Fusi mat, and I looked for mine and I I couldn't find it. I'm still finding stuff after the move. If you have a Fusi mat, your Fusi mat is perfect for this application because the Fusi mat also gets hot. And however, it does not allow the adhesive to dissipate. So it stays, you leave your project on your Fusi mat and it stays with it. I need to trim this because I don't want it on my ironing board. Everything else in my house is sticky. The ironing board is not. Okay, so that is on that one. I'm going to put this one on here. And you're going to apply this to the back side. I'm going to take it to the iron real quick. I'm not going to take the camera over there. I don't want anybody getting sick. Give me just a minute. Alright, so that's warming up. I'm going to lean you up so don't get silk. So for this, Sydney, this is going to be on the machine stitched. To do it hand stitching, I would not use this. I would directly trace using my template piece. So I'm going to use this because I have this in front of me. I would directly trace that onto the back of my fabric. I can show you. And since we're going to hand trace, we're not going to use that. Get it up here. And you can use a pencil or whatever you're most comfortable with. This is not going to matter, so my handy dandy pocket pen is there. Okay. So you would trace around this, and then you're going to cut this out, just like this. Go ahead and do it. And then we're going to cut it out. And then you would take a needle and thread. And I would go around the edge of this, turning it down by hand, basting it down. A 1/4 of an inch-ish. Closest you can get to that as long as you were happy with the shape. And you could trace the heart smaller on the inside of it. Okay. Right? And then you would just finger press, choose your 1/4 of an inch spot right here. It's a little bit less. There we go. And then you would just slowly but surely stitch and turn this down using a basting stitch. It's not anything that's going to stay, because then you're going to, there we go. Then you would do that all the way around the edges, right? Even down here around this little heart edge at the bottom. Iron it and then lay it on your background and pin it onto your background and then hand stitch it down. And I do that because there's some pieces that are so tiny, and there are so involved. I don't want to hand turn them down. I'm not hand turn them down. I don't want to lift the foot on the presser foot as often. So like teeny tiny Scotty dogs that are like that big, which is all of 3 inches long, I will do those are done by hand. But larger items like these, I prefer just to do them on the machine with raw edge. Okay, so these are our pieces. We've done that. Now, get to cut them out again. Lots of cutting. And if you were going to do a lot, you could pre-fuse the back of your fabric and then roll them through like an AccuQuilt cutter or something like that. And then you wouldn't have to trace them all out as long as you had the right shape that you wanted for that. I have a friend that does really, really well with his Cricut. He does the pre-fusing on the back of the Cricut. I just haven't ever gotten the hang of it. I can do vinyl, I can do all that, but not fabric on those. So that's just me. Now this is a single element. So because I'm not going to stack anything else on top of it, I will just take the background and stitch basically adhesive, iron this down on there, and then stitch around it, right? If I were going to do like a Grinch number and do a heart inside of a heart inside of a heart, like this, then this would be another spot where you would want to use your Fusi mat and stack them on there, make sure they're in the right place, and then use your Fusi mat and fuse them together. So pulling the paper off the back of everything but the very bottom piece. And then whenever you pull it off the very bottom, so this would be the heart inside, and this one would still have the paper on, I would iron this one into the right position first, and then come back and then take the paper off the back and iron it down again onto the background. Okay. So, I feel like I'm talking about it. Anyway, if you have any questions, just let me know. These are going to be and you can see it just peels off, and because it's the Featherlight, your fabric still has, like, this is fabric bent and folded without, and then this is fabric that is bent and folded with. So you can see the shiny Fusible that's on the back of this one. Yes, Beth Ann, I would sew the inside of the heart down as well. But I would only do that after I had put it on the background. So I would fuse these two together and then fuse it onto my backing. and then stitch it down. Like whenever I do like this one, I layered all these pieces. I used a light pad because I have a template. Right template. Not that it matters, but it matters to me. And I make copies of my template, and I hold my template up. There it is. So this is the template for the layout of the block, which is true to size. And what I do is I will place this on my light pad and then put my silicone mat on top of this, because the light pad will shine through both the pattern, the Fusi mat, and then put my background fabric on, right? And then layer my pieces on. And you can see right through there because the light shines. And layer my pieces and get them set up in the way that they need to be. Then put my Fusi mat on the ironing board. Iron the stacked pieces into place. Do it all, iron these pieces onto this piece before I iron it onto the background. And then whenever it's all said and done, then I stitch around everything. All of these, it's probably easier to see on the back. You can see that I went around every single element on here after I was done. That way I only have to go to the machine once. And this one, believe it or not, was done with 2 colors. We're going to talk about thread next. That's a big one. So, what you use. So now I'm going to have my hearts. I need another. This one. Okay. So, I have, and this is for me because it doesn't matter. I'm going to make this into a block. I've got it turned. Got y'all turned now. Sorry. I've got it laid out on my cutting mat where the point is on point. This is on point. And I'm going to set this right here because I think that will be cute right there. And then I'm going to set this one right here. And then whenever do I want that? Yes, I want that. So this is what it will look like whenever it's set in. Actually, I want that one to go more like that, right? Don't matter. That's the bottom. Yeah, like that. There we go. Because I'm going to do, these are going to be heart balloons. So there'll be butterflies and heart balloons. And so I will do a heavy machine stitch that will be the string on each one of these with a little bow down here. But, so I have these in place. I need to iron them down and then I'll be right back. Okay, so now my pieces are ironed down. So now they're all ironed down, and this is where we're going to go to the machine. Whenever I am doing, there are 2 ways to select the thread that you want. You can either match the color of every shape you have. You can use monofilament, which is a plastic, almost clear thread. Just know that repeated use of monofilament adds to the wear and tear on your machine. And it just depends on the machine that you have as to how much and all of those things. So I don't use it. What I use is called Invisifill. And the key thing is you really want a thin thread. So Invisifill, we're going to use is an extremely fine. This is what they call 100 weight. And it is Invisifill. So it can be used and gone over several times without getting too heavy. I did, making this sample, I did these hexagons. I stitched them down with a baby pink colored thread earlier in a ladder stitch with this lightweight thread. Same weight bobbin, just that I would use for regular everyday stitching, just the lightweight thread on top. Sorry. We're going to use this one. Okay, so because there's such a drastic difference in these two colors, I'm going to use a cream and then this jade green for the darker one. I think that one will be all right. I may change, subject to change afterwards. I'm going to move us over to the machine and see. I got the Noah's Ark thing done. Don't mind the baskets. Those are orders and such. Okay, let's see if I can get this tilted, or it's easy for you to see. Well, I think bringing you down would probably be a start. Okay, I have a top stitch needle in, top stitch, or even a this would be better. There we go. If I need to, I can adjust a little bit more. Can you see? Yes, I can see. I can see. We can see. Okay. I don't remember what I was saying. First. Okay, so stitches that you can use. You can use a blanket stitch. You can use a zigzag stitch. You could use a wave. You could even use a decorative stitch if you wanted to. I just use this simple blanket stitch for most of mine. If I need to adjust it, it's usually in stitch length, and I can make it shorter to fit in the right groove that I want. So now we've got everything finished, everything completed. Hang on. I'm going to drop you down, bring you to the level of the machine, because it's easier to see. There we go. Okay. So now we've got it on there. We've got it in the right spot. And so I've set, and you can see right here where I've stitched. Maybe not. I don't know. You let me know. Which, there we go. Okay, so I've stitched all the way around this edge right here. I've just stopped with my needle down, especially whenever I'm doing applique. I like for the needle to stop down so that I can pivot whenever I am, especially like whenever we get right here, definitely need to pivot there, or the sharp point here. This curve that we're going around is more just about manipulating the fabric as the presser foot lifts. If you have a machine that has a knee lift, this one does have a knee lift with it. I just don't use it very often. But it is my second favorite. So this one is most machines have an automatic foot lift. This one still has a presser foot lift in the back, so I can manually lift that up. I have to manually lift that up. And so because of that, for me on this particular machine, it's just as easy to pick it up and adjust. And my guide somewhat with this is that this center line right here should be the edge, or just on the inside edge of your fabric. And stitch and turn just so that I know, keeping that thought process in mind as I move forward. And you can go as fast or as slow as you want to. Normally I would use and it's in the box with the light box and my silicone mat. I would use an open toe foot, or a foot that doesn't have toes at all, an applique foot. Because that would give me a better visual right here where this is. And everybody has a similar foot. Hang on, I'm going to grab my bag of feet from my old machine. If I don't knock the camera down, promise. Sorry. Everybody has a foot that fits one or the other of those in their box of tools, or you can buy one for your machine. This one is a good example. I don't remember what it is. Let's use this one. And it has, as you can see, it's got the plastic pieces in there, and it's really wide, so that gives you a better visualization of what's going under the needle. But this is my everyday machine, and she and I are well acquainted with this party. So knowing the pattern and being able to recognize the pattern that your machine stitches in, and whenever I say that, it's going to be, so this is on the outside, it's going to take a step forward, it's going to take a step to the inside, back out to the outside, step forward. Knowing that part of it, of your stitch, is extremely helpful whenever you're doing raw edge applique, so that you know when you can turn it, when you can't turn it. Like, I know that it's back on the inside, I can make a little bit of an adjustment here. It's going to take a stitch forward, and we're still going to maintain the closeness to the edge of the fabric, and I'm turning it just a smidge while it's on the outside. It's going to go to the inside, come back here, I'm going to make a little bit more of adjustment. So that your stitches maintain their uniformity, but you're able to keep the close edge that you want with that. Okay, so that one is finished. And then we'll do this one real quick. It's the same process over and over again. Now, if your machine, and most machines have a digital screen, like this one does right here, it will tell you whenever you've started in on your pattern. So this one tells me that it's in mid pattern. It's not completed yet. I need to note where the needle is. If you stop on the last one where you're stitching on these machines, it'll pick up right back off into the same pattern. If I wanted to restart it, I would just simply touch the screen so I would know that it would start on the outside of where I am stitching. Helps if your machine is threaded, which sometimes I sew without mine threaded. Makes the project last a little bit longer. So, perfect instance where I need to restart it because I am not. Now, if you wanted to say do this, and see, I didn't even change thread colors because don't need to. In a heavier pink thread and have it stand out more, give it a definitely a more vintage vibe, then you can do that as well. The heavier your thread or the opposite color of your thread, the more your stitching is going to stand out. As well. So things you absolutely have to have to do raw edge applique is you need a pen. You need either a heat and bond, or I think they called it Wonder Under. Pellon has Wonder Under. There is steam to seam, but that's not my favorite. It tends to be, even their steam to seam light. No, it's not a left-handed machine. It's just backwards. I am left-handed. I don't find it in a you're looking at the front view of the camera. I don't find it to be difficult to use as a left-handed person at all. Steam to seam, heat and bond, Wonder Under. I'm sure there's another one that I'm not thinking of. And originally heat and bond wasn't as phenomenal as it is now. But I've been using heat and bond since 2005, and it has changed since then. Light or lightweight is my bar none absolute favorite. In my brain, they're incomparable, and we all have different experiences. So you probably could use a glue stick. I know, like, whenever we do the hand turned down, Beth Ann, and then we're going to put it on, we'll use a glue stick if it's a really tiny piece, because that's more forgiving than a pin in the middle of the hand. I think it's just depends on what you get used to and what you're taught to do. For this particular style, I would have to try it before I would say that you could use the glue stick for that. Because usually whenever I use the glue stick, I'm putting it further back where either the machine is not going to run through it, or I'm not going to stitch it by hand because it can be sometimes, not all the time, depending on your glue, it can get stiff to run through. Now the Soline glue stick, I use it on foundation paper piecing. Well, you just have to start on foundation paper piecing. But again, I use it back from where my stitch line is. And I'm sure you probably could. But then I would probably say, then I would want to use like a non-stick vinyl needle with that, just to be sure that it wouldn't gunk up the needle and affect my stitch quality on my machine. And you can use any fabric for applique. I have a friend that does children's clothing, and she does... I used to do it as well, but I haven't done it in a long time. And I never did it to the extent that she does. She does these amazing stacked up appliques on these hoodies and stuff that she's making. Girl's got talent and skill. Ta-da! And those pieces are done. So let's go back over to the table. So you're going to need your Fusible. You are going to need a pen. You are going to need your template. You can cut apart children's, like I said, coloring pages. You can copy out of an art book. You could draw yourself if you have the skill and you would be happy with it. It just depends on how intricate and how in depth you want to go with your applique as to, sorry, I'm slurping up the legs so I can sit you on the table so nobody gets sick. So that you can make your pieces. You can do, if you're not familiar with people who do applique, P3 Designs out of Texas makes some amazing patterns. She likes Baltimore style quilts. Who else does really good applique? The next person that does really good applique is going to be your Laundry Basket Quilts. She has some really, really good ones. Well, they all have really good ones, but hers are some of my favorites. They're more elegant. Whimsy Applique. I'm trying to think who does Whimsy. More Whimsy style is going to be your Lori Holt, because hers are done. Now, Lori Holt's are done a little bit different in that you are going to do the same thing where you're going to trace the template out onto Patchwork Plus. There you go. Yes, Patchwork Plus. You're going to trace the template out onto like SPF 101. And this is going to go onto the, you're going to trace the template out. You're going to lay it on top, cut it in a square around it, lay it on top of your other fabric, and then stitch on that trace line, leaving a hole on a straight edge somewhere to make, so that you can flip it. And then you're going to flip it and fuss all the edges out. And then you're either going to stitch it down by hand or by machine like what we just did. So then it's not raw edge. It's going to be a stitch and what I call a stitch and flip. I don't know if that's the official name of it or not. That's my name. It's a stitch and flip. And then the world is your oyster. Decide what side you want your block to be. What do you want to put it on? You could take these hearts and put them on a waffle towel. You could put them on a denim skirt or the back of a denim jacket. The world is whatever you want it to be. Whenever it comes to this, you can put them anywhere and everywhere. So, Fusible. Your background fabric, your pattern, and then you're going to trace your pattern onto the background. The paper backing. What you need to note on your thing is if it's reversed or not reversed, right? So that you make sure that it goes onto the right side. Your pattern is going to tell you. So like I did this one, this is mine. Your pattern will tell you if you need to flip it, if you're going to put it on the Fusible or not. If you're doing it yourself, then that's going to be entirely up to you. Then you need your background fabric and your pieces for it, and an iron and your machine, and then you're ready to go. If you want to have the next level up, then you're going to need your Fusi mat, your silicone, not a silicone, Teflon iron sheet, because that'll help keep the sticky at bay off the plate of your iron. And then you are going to need, you will want, it's not a need, it's a want, a light pad, because that makes it easier to trace your drawings onto either the Fusible or whichever you want to, especially like if you're going to use this one, right? So this one, the pieces are traced onto the Fusible. I'll show you. There we go. Using the light pad and moving it around, right? Like this. I laid my heat and bond onto here, which that's the shape of my leaves down here, and then traced it a bunch of times, back and forth, onto the heat and bond, because this didn't come from a template. So I could have made a template for it, but I didn't. That's how we did that. That's all traced just by hand onto there. And so the light pad makes that easier. I do sell these things. I don't have a light pad right now, but I'm going to get some in next week. I do have the heat and bond. I do have heat and bond light and feather light. Those two are my favorites. You want a lot of them. And then other nicety things. You can use, I have it in here, a stiletto. If you don't have one, you can get one. Most of the time you use them for turning the edges down or it's for sticking for having a finger to stick where you don't want to stick your finger. There we go. So, stiletto, so that if you need to run an edge up underneath the foot of the machine, you don't want your finger there. You don't want your finger there. No sewing of the fingers allowed. So, that being said, any questions? I have my notes here, and I've gone all over the things in my notes. I'm trying to think if there's something that I have forgotten to tell you that I do or not, because I do this often enough that I don't think about it anymore. When I'm doing machine applique, I will cut my piece, because those are pieces that you lay down and then you trim them after the machine runs around. This of course is an embroidery machine. I will still use this on there because it prevents the fraying and I can get really close. Makes for a nice clean cut. What else? So I have bins of fabric that have heat and bond light on the back of them. So usually my project is determined sometimes my project is determined by if I've already applied it or not, and can I get it done quickly. I'm going to do a whole bunch of spring things. So I'm going to do a series of spring blocks. They could be turned into blocks. These will be door banners. So it'll be just one little scene. on there. And you could do alphabets. You can do the whole, I mean, seriously, it makes it so much easier for adding elements. I'm going to do an umbrella full of flowers. I have this, I've wanted to do it for several years, and this year I'm just going to do it. So that is my spiel about Applique. If you have any questions, you can message me if you need anything or if you're working on anything. We do have a group called Stitching with Farmer's Wife, and you can pop in there. I answer questions as often as I possibly can. There's a lot of people already in there that can help you along the way too, because, you know, I am not claiming to be the end all and know all to it. I just am sharing what I know, but everybody has their own thing, right? So, and that's the great thing about this community, is that we can share and learn together. So that being said, it has been great to see y'all. I hope to see you again soon. Next week's tips and tricks is going to be, I don't know what yet. Possibly foundation paper piecing. I have a project in mind. Oh, well, it's a sample that needs to be made, but that's neither here nor there. So it has been great seeing y'all and talking with you, and I will see y'all again next week. Bye.